Hey, what's up guys? Chase here, and today I'm going to give you the market dynamics for Ada County, the Boise area, through the end of February. These are hot off the press, and I know these videos are way too long, and most of you will not watch the whole thing. So here's the top 3 things you need to know if this is too long and you won't watch. Number 1, the average asking price in Ada County, average sold price in Ada County is $440,000. The average asking price, so the average available home right now, is $702,000. And the last thing you're actually going to need to watch to really understand what this means, but terms. Terms are extremely important right now, and if you want to watch the rest of this video, you'll find out why. All right guys, thanks for sticking around to watch the rest of this video. We're going to talk about those 3 things we just spoke on in a little bit further in depth. So here's what you need to know. Ada County's average sold price is $440,000, almost on the dot. So for those of you that don't know, Ada County, if you're maybe from out of the area or just aren't familiar with it yet, Ada County comprises of these cities: Boise, Garden City, Eagle, Meridian, and Star. Those are your, and Kuna, 6 cities. Those are the main cities that are comprising up of Ada County. There are sections of Nampa and some other areas that have Ada County in them as well, but for the most part, it's those 6 cities that we're looking at here when we talk about these numbers. So it's the Boise area. Now you still have Canyon County, which would be Nampa, Caldwell, Middleton, and some other areas. But the main ones we're talking about today, when I'm talking about 440, that's just those 6 cities I brought up. So what's significant about that? Well, it's up about 300% in the last 10 years. So that's pretty significant. The other thing is just year over year, we're up about 20 to 25%, depending on which market and which section you're looking at. So we're seeing rapid growth. And I'm here to tell you, at least in the short term, it's not going to slow down. The average asking price, as you can see from earlier, was $702,000. That means all the listings, if you add them all up and divide them by the number, you get the average price of $702,000. Now, the majority of homes that are selling are obviously selling at a lower price point. So there's not as many of these higher end homes that are hitting the market, and there's not as many of them that are selling. But every single section of our market right now has extremely low inventory. It's less than 15 days all the way up to $1 million, and even in some sections there, it's very short. So that brings us to terms. I want to give you some tips. If you've been a buyer in this market and you're struggling to find a home, there's some things you need to be aware of. And if you're a seller and you're just kind of eavesdropping on this conversation, there's things you need to be aware of as well. Right now, the sellers, because it's such a hot seller's market, they're able to get very generous terms for them. So let me give you some examples of what those terms might be. And there's 2 or 3 that I want to talk about. One of them is a little bit complex, and I need you to understand it as a buyer. So the first one is waiving home inspections. That's becoming a common practice. Now, as a real estate professional, we're always going to advise our clients to get an inspection. And if they want to get the house, a lot of times that could be the difference between them getting the home and not. It's not just the price, although price is obviously a big term too. Another term is appraisals. So if you're buying a home and you don't have cash, like most of us, you don't have cash to buy the home outright, then you have to get a loan. If you get a loan, the lender will require an independent third party to go out and value the home. That's what an appraisal is. Not to be confused with a comparative market analysis that you would get from a real estate professional like one of our own Boise agents. This is an appraisal. So Own Boise, your agent, when you call us and you want to find out the value of your property, we're going to give you an accurate valuation. In fact, we're going to give you the best accurate valuation you can get in terms of market value. But it's not going to be what an appraisal is. A lot of times these appraisals are coming in below market value because the market's moving so quickly, and appraisers can only use historical data, right? So they're going back 3 months or 6 months. Well, 6 months ago, we were 15% lower than we were today. So you can see how their appraised value might come in lower than the actual market value. That's why I want you to be aware of what the difference is between those two. Now, what does appraisal have to do with terms? Many of these buyers are waiving their appraisal contingency. So what does that mean? That means if the appraisal comes in low, so let me just give you an example. If the home's listed at $500,000 and the appraisal comes in at $450,000, so home's 500, appraisal's at 450, the buyer's waiving the contingency. So normally there's a contingency saying, if the home doesn't appraise at the value that I offer, then I can walk away and get my earnest money back. These buyers today, they're having to waive that contingency and they're having to cover the gap between the two. So let me explain what all this means to you if you're a buyer in this market today. And in fact, I just recently represented a buyer who was in this exact same boat, and I'll tell you the strategy we used to get him a home because he did not have money to cover the difference. A lot of us don't have 50, 60, 100 grand just sitting there to be able to cover the difference between the appraised value and the loan amount, or the sales price, excuse me. So let's go back to that exact scenario I'm telling you, 450 to 500. The buyer's gonna have to come out of pocket with 50,000 bucks because the loan, the maximum loan amount is gonna be 450,000, but the sales price is 500. So the buyer is saying, I'm willing to pay out of pocket, cash, for the difference between the appraised value and the sales price. So what do you do if you're a buyer and you don't have that as an option? You don't have 50 grand or 100 grand or someone you can borrow the money from or ask the money for, like most of us, right? Well, there's a lot of different strategies you can use. One of which is fishing in a pond that doesn't have as many people fishing in it. So on the resale market right now, if you're looking at $300,000, $400,000, even $500,000, it's very, very, very common. I would say, in fact, probably like 9 out of 10 times. If these homes are hitting the MLS, they're selling for above the asking price and the buyer's having to waive the appraisal contingency, which means if you don't have the cash, you don't have a chance at getting your offer accepted. In most scenarios. Now, there are some scenarios here and there where you're going to get your offer accepted, but let's be very clear. If they've got 10 or 15 offers and 7 or 8 of those are waiving the appraisal and you're not, what would you do if you were the seller? Of course. I mean, when we represent sellers, we want to get them the best price and the best terms for their situation. So we're going to weed out the ones that have appraisal contingencies if we have that option. That's the crazy thing about this market. So what can you do as a buyer? Well, one of them is find properties that have less demand. Well, what would that look like? Honestly, this would be one of the few times I'd tell you, go look for overpriced listings that have been on the market for more than a week or 2 weeks. That sounds insane because you go back 5 years ago, the average days on market was like 90 days. We used to have conversations with our seller every week about why their home didn't sell. And now, if the home's been on the market for more than 2 days and we don't have 10 offers, we have the conversation with our seller about why we don't have 10 offers. So the market's completely different. But if you can go find a property that's maybe overvalued, that might be your ticket to getting the terms you want. Maybe you don't have to waive the appraisal contingency. Look, if they're asking 100 grand more than market value and they accept your offer and it's got an appraisal contingency and the appraisal comes in low, then maybe the seller will lower the price. And you don't have to compete and come out above asking price. Another thing might be to look at some of the new construction builders. Some of our more prominent new construction builders that are production builders and doing a lot of homes, maybe they have a property out there that's overpriced. Let's be honest, a lot of them are overpriced. You don't have to compete. And most of those builders are willing to work with you on the appraisal depending on your situation. So there's a couple tips for you buyers out there. If this doesn't make sense, don't worry about it. That's what we're here to do, is help you navigate this market. And then sellers, guys, I say this until I'm blue in the face. Every single day, I am seeing sellers leave money on the table every day. Let me give you an example of what that looks like. A seller calls us and says, hey, yeah, you said you might have a buyer for my home. Well, I'm willing to sell it, or I'm for sale by owner, and we say, hey, well, have you ever considered listing with an agent? You know, because if you go on the market and we get your home exposed to the most amount of people possible, it's likely we could get you more money. And they say, no, I've sold my home on my own. An idiot can sell a home in this market. Okay, I don't argue with that. Any home right now in this market that's priced right is going to sell. Here's the problem. Like, we had 4 listings go live this weekend. I'll just go over one of them, and they're all very similar to this. One of them had 15 offers with almost 10% above the asking price. Now, the list price on this home was in the mid 800s. So this home's gonna sell in the mid 900s. Okay, now if you think, oh, I'm saving money by not paying a commission, well, did you price it right to begin with? Did you get the most amount of exposure possible? And do you know how to negotiate the best price and terms for your situation? We've already established with this conversation that terms are extremely important. And having someone on your side that knows how to navigate it, knows what the market's doing, how it's fluctuating, and how much they can push the buyers can pay off in dividends to you. So if you want to find out what your home's worth and how we can help you sell your home and find a new one with no risk of being homeless, you need to reach out to us today, because we have multiple ways we can do this for you in this amazing seller's market. That's it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for checking it out, and be sure to reach out to us with any questions you have about any of these conversations we've had to this point. Thanks so much. I'm Chase with Own Boise, and have a great week.